This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. Cris loves educating people in person and over the airwaves. Whether it's retirement planning, investing, tax, or legacy, Cris prides himself in helping protect what matters to you. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm your host, Cris Wallace, certified financial planner, and here with me today are financial advisors Graham Bauer and Richard Constantine, who is also a certified financial planner. As always, we're here every week to discuss all things financial planning with a little extra sauce from time to time. So we've got a great show lined up for everyone today. If you missed the show or joined partway through, you can always jump over to Spotify or Apple Podcast and listen to the entire episode. And if you want the show to show up at the top of your feed on Saturday mornings, just go ahead and follow the show. So today's topics that we are going to cover are something called cost plus. So Graham was in a meeting and he ran into something that he feels like might be valuable to the listener, valuable to our client base. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to get into why we feel working with a CFP is valuable to individuals and families. So we'll touch on those topics as well. And then we've all been in the office just kind of talking about things that we see on social media, and that is our 401ks a scam. And so that'll be something we'll definitely dive into today. But before we jump into all of that, I want to get into some current events, and I want to welcome, Graham back to the show. He's been gone a couple of weeks now, and we were teasing him pre-show saying that he's just raring and ready to go. So welcome back, Graham.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I was gone for a week trying to escape the country, but they sent me back. I was in Canada for a week. And yeah, excited to be on the show and be talking to you guys again today.
Yeah, well, welcome back, Richard, to you. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
All right, Graham.
Graham, I'm glad that you're back here. We don't have to. Chris and I don't have to get in a tug of war match anymore. So we can lay it off to you.
Yeah, a little handoff to Graham, if you will.
Yeah, I guess try to be the mediator.
Yeah. So, well, let's jump into the updates here. So we've got a really big week in the markets. I'll kind of go over the headlines, and then Richard, I'll let you kind of chime in on a couple of things as well. But today's Tuesday, so we always record the show on Tuesday. Everybody seems to know that by now. And NVIDIA reports earnings tomorrow. So I think that's going to be a pretty big, announcement when that comes out. Richard, do you happen to know what time they're going to release that news?
So it will be after market closes tomorrow afternoon. But Chris, to your point, this is a really big earnings call because, as you and I discussed 2 weeks ago, NVIDIA is the last of the big 7 companies in the S&P 500 to report earnings. Mm-hmm. It also happens to be, the one company that is supplying products to the other big 6 or the other 7 or 6 companies. Mm-hmm. The other ones are kind of isolated and are doing their own thing, whereas they're all running off of NVIDIA's chips. And so this is a big earnings for everybody.
Yeah, I think you said something like 74% of the companies that had reported so far had beat earnings or something along those lines.
That is true. Yep. Yeah. It's significantly higher than, the 10-year averages of companies doing better than expected. But yeah, this is the last of the big players in the S&P 500 that are reporting earnings for Q1 2024.
Gotcha. Other big news tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, is the Fed minutes will be released. So obviously what happens here, those minutes are released, and then everybody critiques every single word and tries to find out, are they going to lower rates? They're looking for clues, hawkish, dovish, whatever. They're going to be really analyzing. And then something else that I think was interesting to me was home data is going to come out on a Wednesday and Thursday. So we've got existing home data that comes out on Wednesday and new home data on Thursday. And as everybody knows, housing is such a big economic indicator. So we'll be checking that out as well to kind of see which way we think the economy's headed, and should give us a pretty good indication. So as far as the market returns for the year, Richard, I'll let you kind of go over those, just kind of where we're at year to date.
Yeah, so far the S&P 500 year to date is up 11.18%. The Dow Jones is up 6.14%. The NASDAQ is up 11.16%, and the aggregate bond index is down 1.41%. one of the things that is unique, in my opinion, is how the S&P 500 as a whole is actually up more than the NASDAQ is. And, the reason why this is significant is because, so the NASDAQ is comprised of 100 different companies, whereas S&P 500 is comprised of 500 different companies. They have the same big players in both indices, but with S&P 500 leading, it shows that, the market as a whole is doing really well, and it's not just concentrated into a few positions.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you as well. The other thing that you mentioned is that the aggregate bond index is down. We talked about that last week, and, bonds just continue to struggle. So again, for those of you who have more bonds in the portfolio, it's been somewhat of a boat anchor, if you will, when it comes to performance over the last 3 years. We're headed into, we're in the middle of the worst bond market in history. So, or bond bear market, I should say. So yeah, I think as a retiree, you do have to think about your diversification. But as I've said many times on the show, I think it's time to start looking maybe at some other tools. I think that, when you're building out a portfolio, you're looking for diversification. At the end of the day, I think what all of us investors want is the highest return for the least possible risk. And so I think looking at some different pieces of diversification, probably a really, really good idea. All right, so I want to move in.
Chris, also, sorry, it's, the bonds are inside of a retiree's portfolio are supposed to be the life jacket that keeps everything afloat. And you want a consistent return on it. And it's, even if that consistent return is low. And so it is a little bit disheartening to see bonds, how poorly they've performed over the past few years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's made a dent in some portfolios for sure. So I want to move into something that Graham ran into this past week. He and I went to a client review, and this particular individual had lost their job. And so Graham was kind of leading the review. I was there with him. And then he ran into something because this particular individual is, I believe that they're on COBRA right now, if I'm not mistaken, for healthcare.
Doing COBRA at the moment, yes.
Right. And I believe that they did not use the COBRA to get their prescriptions. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yes. They're not using the COBRA now to get their prescription because of, what they're doing with Cost Plus.
Okay. So why don't you go into what was kind of uncovered there? And I was not really aware of this. And once we read up on it, I was a little familiar with it, but this particular individual, I guess, highlighted some of the positives from it.
Yeah, I think I'd heard of it as well, but it wasn't necessarily something that I had thought of as, maybe this could be good client information.
Right.
I just kind of heard a news article or two about it. So we were talking to him. He lost his job recently. He's looking for another job, hoping to go back to work, currently using COBRA, like we said, and, may look to the exchange or something like that. But for the time being, their prescriptions were really, really expensive for what they had to pay, their actual out-of-pocket cost, that is. So they brought up, they were telling us, hey, we're actually using this service called costplusdrugs.com. And it's saving us a whole lot of money on our prescriptions. We're ordering it and they're shipping it to the house. And so I had heard of it, and, Chris had heard of it as well. And so we kind of did a little bit more research on it. You guys, listening might be familiar. Mark Cuban, kind of a billionaire that might have seen on Shark Tank or other places. It's his company that he has kind of started with the idea to sort of help cut down the prices of generic medications. So not to get too in the weeds of how, pharmaceutical pricing works, because, it's not our expertise. My understanding is typically, you got a manufacturer, and then there's kind of a middleman that negotiates between the manufacturer and the consumer, and that can add up some costs. So their model kind of tries to just mark up 15% for manufacturing plus a small pharmacy fee and shipping. So if you're somebody that, has a lot of out-of-pocket drug costs, maybe you're early in retirement and, using exchange high deductible insurance, and you're just having really high copays, you might want to check out costplusdrugs.com. A lot of these savings, you can kind of go on their website and they'll show you. There's some like popular medications that people use for even just something like Prozac. They're selling for, $16 less than the retail value. So could be a good way, to cut down on some extra costs there that people have when they are between insurances, or, maybe not on Medicare yet, or, not on an insurance that helps you out with those drug costs quite as much.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting when she communicated that to us, because again, I had heard of this before, but this is the first time that I've actually met someone who was using it, and the numbers that she was throwing around to us and how much that she was saving. I thought, wow, this is really good for some people, will work really, really well. So I know a lot of people when, well, I don't say a lot of people. I say some people, when Obama was in office, didn't care for Obama as president, but they'll use the Obamacare insurance. Well, some people may not care for Mark Cuban. Doesn't matter at this point. Let's remove the people and look at what it does. We have a lot of clients that use the ACA exchange for insurance, and now we're kind of like saying, hey, maybe you should take a look at this for some prescriptions, and let's just remove all the political nature from it and just look at what it does. And it seems like our client that's using this is actually doing well on it in terms of saving some money. So give that a look. And with that, I want to move into why we feel like working with a certified financial planner can be valuable. So Richard and I are CFPs, and Graham is actually going through the process. So Graham he's pretty amazing at all he's been able to do through college and graduation, and now attempting to obtain the CFP and kind of going through the process. So I wanted to talk a little bit with Graham about the journey for a couple seconds, and then we're going to give some data behind the CFP designation and whatnot. But Graham, in terms of the class itself, have you found it, I guess, to be challenging? Has it been challenging for you? And just kind of describe your walk through this journey so far.
Yeah, it's definitely been a very challenging process for people who aren't familiar with sort of what you need in order to hold the designation of a CFP. You have to have a 4-year college degree. I don't believe it matters necessarily what it's in, but you have to have a 4-year, bachelor's degree. You also have to go through, I believe it's 7, what they kind of consider to be graduate level courses about, the 7 sort of principles of planning that they have, as well as a capstone where you kind of apply all of that knowledge. Some people do that in their master's program. Some people do that, just through a third-party provider education service. And then you also have to have, 2 years of experience under a CFP or 3 years of experience, just in the industry. And then you have to pass the test, which, that's a pretty hard part as well. So yeah. I'm getting to the end. I've got my college degree. I got my, my courses with them. I'll get my experience towards the end of this year. And so I kind of am just working towards the test right now. And it's definitely been very difficult because, I went through the process of doing my insurance licenses and the Series 65. And those are definitely, challenging on some level. But the CFP exam goes just so far deeper than, something like the Series 65 does. And it makes a lot of sense to me why, a lot of people, and we're kind of getting into this topic, want to work with a CFP because, there are some things they'll teach you in the CFP that we're not even really supposed to talk about with clients in the regard that they want you to learn, but you're going to know how to do it. You're going to be more familiar. Like, for example, we're not going to be able to file people's tax returns and give exact figures on some things, but it's going to make you very familiar with that stuff. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking with a client and maybe have their CPA looped in as well for something really complicated, it gives you a much greater background of that. So there's a lot of that, in estate planning and taxes and insurance planning. Mm-hmm. So I think so far it's been very beneficial. And obviously I still got, a couple months to go till the actual exam. So there's still more to learn.
Yeah, it's definitely, I agree with you, having completed it just a few years ago. It's definitely, it's something that taught me quite a bit. And it also gave me a much deeper background in a lot of different areas, again, specifically in the tax area. I think that was something you said to me a couple months ago. You're like, wow, I definitely feel a lot better when looking at a return, going through that class. So again, kudos to Graham for, doing that. And Richard, I think you just recently, I want to say as recent as December, somewhere around there, maybe January, yours officially went into effect. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. So it was back in November, because just waiting on like Graham mentioned, the 3 years of experience portion of it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, going through that whole process, honestly, it's sometimes I'm like, wow, I really knew nothing prior to going through the whole process. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of you realize, like, you don't realize what you don't know.
Exactly.
And it's I thought I was doing a great job, 2 years ago, a year ago. And I realized now that, although I was doing very well in certain areas, it was not the full comprehensive look that clients deserve to have their unique situation viewed in.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it should be almost a requirement for people to manage other people's assets without having a CFP designation.
I agree. 100% agree with you. So that actually is going to be one of my questions. Why do you think they don't just go get the CFP?
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
I think that's probably, well, one thing about the industry, and I don't have an exact statistic here, but I know that in general, the average age of a financial advisor is around 45 to 50, I believe. Someone could double check me on that.
I think you're
in the
close.
ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people have been doing it for maybe a long time. And, you might not want to go back and have to go through another rigorous process because, for a long time, the CFP, I believe the mark is fairly new, from industry standards. It's been around for a while, but, if you've been in the industry for 30 years, 40 years, there was probably a time where almost no one was a CFP. Yeah. And now a lot more people are getting it. So I think the difficulty level of that probably, is what deters a lot of people.
Yeah. And Richard, just real quick, why do you think that more people don't have it?
I think people get comfortable in life and, they don't strive to be the best version of themselves. And yeah. I think it's applicable, on the work side too. They're comfortable with how they treat their clients and they're not trying to be the best version of themselves that they can be.
Yeah, I think that's definitely some of it. I think the time commitment is a big part of it because you have to pass all the classes and then you must go past the extensive exam, which the way that I described it to my kids was I said, hey, you guys have 7 periods in school and it's like having all of those 7 periods, your subjects on one test at one time. And you've got, 6 hours basically to complete all the questions. So it's definitely difficult. And I think that's time commitment, just maybe lack of wanting to do a little bit better for yourself. And sometimes it could be the money because it's not cheap to get the testing and pay for the testing. And you got certifications and a lot of CEs you got to keep up with, every 2 years. So, that's our opinion. So just for the listener that may have just tuned in, I just want to remind everybody that you're listening to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Cris Wallace, certified financial planner. With me today is Graham Bauer, a financial advisor at our firm, and then also Richard Constantine, certified financial planner as well. So on the note and topic of CFPs, this is something that, when I was doing some research as we were putting together the show, there are only 763 CFPs according to the CFP board website. There's only 763 in the entire state of Alabama. And I found that a little bit shocking because I think there's several thousands of insurance agents and only just a handful of CFPs. So I found that interesting. And then in Tennessee, there's only 1,782. So between Tennessee and Alabama, there's less than 2,500 CFPs located in both states, which to me, again, it's like, why aren't there more? And I think we kind of addressed that. So Graham, as far as the average age of a CFP, so you're going to be on the younger side, which is great. Actually, you and Richard, and if Levi obtains his in our office as well, you guys will all be in that low percentage demographic because only 6.2% of CFPs are ages 20 to 29. The biggest age bracket is really from 30 to age 59. So 30 to 39 is 23%, 40 to 49 is 25, 50 to 59 is 22%. So there's quite a few that's in that 30 to 59 age range. And you can see when you look at the data, I sent you guys the notes. You're going to have a lot of advisors are going to be, aging out and retiring here probably in the next few years as we see the top end of that kind of going off into the golden years, if you will. Yeah.
So I wonder if you'll see more of an influx of CFPs in the younger groups, because right now we make up the small percentage. But as more advisors phase out, I know a lot of college programs in financial planning are nowadays kind of geared towards helping you to prepare for the CFP, especially if it's a master's program through a lot of universities, and even some of them are online. So, I think it would be a great thing, with obviously college is probably a lot more popular today than it was 40 years ago. or even 30 years ago. So it'll be interesting to me to see if, the marks become more of a standard with kind of a new generation of advisors coming up.
Yeah, it will be interesting to check that out. The other thing that I noted here, or, from the CFP website, is it's a male dominated industry at this point. And I know we've interviewed a lot of advisors through the years. And again, it just by the way that the numbers fall mostly ends up being men, because 76% of CFPs are men and 24% are females. So, hopefully we'll see that number increase, because there's a lot of value to having a female planner on staff. There's just a tremendous amount of value there. I want to talk real quick about the first time and second time pass rates. For first time test takers in March of 2024, the pass rate was 68%. And if you were taking it for like the second or third time or whatever, if you were a retake, that drops down into 54%. So first time test takers, 68%. If you were a second time test taker, it dropped down to around 54%. So what's kind of crazy to me is it seems like the more you take it, the lower your score ends up dropping. And I think that has a lot to do with just thinking that you know some of the material, and I don't think you prep as hard. But historically, the pass rate's been in the low to mid 60s, and the second time test takers have been in the high 40s and low 50s there. So what I want to do as we get ready to wrap up the show here, or wrap up this segment rather, is I want to look at some other designations that are out there. So we've got the RFC. So that's I didn't know what this was. I had to look this up. So I saw it on a website, RFC, Registered Financial Consultant. And I was like, oh, sounds important, RFC. So do you know what the pass rate on that one is, Graham, by any chance?
No, I'm not aware of that one.
It's 100% probably, because there is no exam. You just, I guess, somehow sign up to be an RFC, and you can call yourself a registered financial consultant.
It's as long as you write the check, you're good.
Something, I guess so. I guess it's 100%. Then there's something that's been around for a little bit, the Certified Retirement Planning Counselor, so CRPC. And I talked about the pass rate historically with a CFP being somewhere in the range of, low 60s. Well, the CRPC, the pass rate's 86%. So it's incredibly high. So normally we would say, oh, that's great. But it also tells me, well, that's probably pretty easy designation to get. So I did a little comparison. I just pulled it off, online. And the examination for the CRPC is an 85 question, 3-hour exam. So, I mean, you probably pass that with, in your sleep. That's probably not much more difficult than the insurance exam, where the CFP is 150 question, 6-hour multiple choice exam, across all elements of financial planning. And then the continuing education requirements is another thing that I happen to notice. CFP requires 30 hours every 2 years. CRPC only requires 16. So as we noted on the show before, 70% of millionaires prefer to work with a CFP, according to financialmagazine.com. At our firm, we feel like designations matter. That's why we shoot for what many consider the gold standard in the financial planning industry. And that is according to the American College of Financial Services. That is not Chris's gold standard. That is what is considered the gold standard in planning today. And all the planners at WG Financial Group must have the CFP or be licensed and going through the process. So that is something that we take to heart, and we want our clients and prospects to know that when they come in to see us, they are sitting down with a highly qualified individual. Okay, so I ran through a lot of statistics there on the CFP. We talked about the pass rates, the average age, male-female split, the comparison to some other designations that are out there. Richard, to you, what really jumps out to you, with any of those statistics?
Yeah, so there's really two of those statistics that really jump out to me, Chris. The first one is how few CFPs are actually in the state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. For example, in other industries where the working with a qualified professional is incredibly important. For example, for physicians in the state of Alabama, there are right now 12,869 board certified physicians in the state of Alabama. And so it amazes me that there is, less than 1/12 the amount of CFPs as there are physicians in the state. And honestly, the other stat that kind of surprised me was the fact that there are still 0.7% of CFPs, so almost 1% of CFPs who are over the age of 80. Be a little bit concerned working with them, if I was being honest.
I didn't really take notice of that on the chart we have in the notes here that we prepared, but that's an interesting statistic.
I'm not sure if I'm a client, I'm wanting to work with a CFP who's above 80. I don't know if he planned it well enough for himself. So.
Or maybe he's just, loves it so much he or she's still going, right? So, Graham, what about yourself? What jumped out to you as as these statistics were rattled off? What really impresses you or made an impression on you?
Yeah, well, looking at the age thing again, Richard, you brought up the 80 plus group is 0.7. There's also 0.1% no age given. And I'd really like to know if that means they don't fit into any of these groups, which I guess is kind of impossible. So it probably means they just declined to give an age, which I wonder what the situation is where you just really don't want to. Maybe some guy thought the lady running the test was really cute or something. And he was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm much younger. He just didn't want to.
I'm just not going to say my age.
Didn't want to say he was 80 plus taking the test or something.
That's funny.
But also, I thought it was kind of interesting how many people are actually sitting for the test every couple of months. On the other slide, it showed this last cycle in March of 2024, 3,683 people sat for it, and 2,488 actually passed. So I think that was kind of encouraging to me to see that there is a significant amount of people actually coming into the industry with the CFP designation. I think I was trying to kind of draw a trend of like, oh, there's an upward trend of more and more people taking it. You can't really find that looking at these stats. They're a bit all over the place. All over, yeah. But this last one was a particularly large group.
Yeah, it was. And again, so like the thing that I guess stood out to me was because it was me was I was a second time test taker. You guys know I didn't pass it the first time around. And when I went for my review, there's a whole long story. You guys know it. I had cellulitis in my foot, ended up in the hospital during the review. So it didn't quite go as I'd hoped. But on the second time through, where the pass rate drops off pretty significantly for second time test takers, I was able to pass it. And that was one of the things that I went over in my mind. It was like, okay, don't take this lightly. Don't think that you know more than you know because you didn't pass it the first time. So you have to put in the extra work. And I remember it was you guys again know all the backstory, but it was difficult on my family because I was running the business and, going to school and trying to study for the CFP. And it put a lot of stress on, my at home time because I had to spend a lot of time in the books. And I had a little chart that I was, following as far as my little study guide, how many times I had to take the practice test, et cetera. So that if you're listening to the show and you're a second time test taker, you're going to want to study extra hard because your mind is going to want to tell you that you already know certain things and you really need to treat it as if it's your first time again. So for me, that was the big stat that jumped out there. And then for me personally, I did the little comparison between the CRPC and the CFP because I've been asked before, are you a certified, what is that? Certified retirement planning counselor? I'm like, no, I'm a CFP. It's the CRPC and more, essentially. Oh, yeah, but, certified retirement planning counselor is good with retirement. Yep, so is a CFP because he or she's been through a much more rigorous process. And so when I did that analysis against the two, looked at the pass rates will tell you everything. If everybody's passing it, you can tell that it's probably not super rigorous. If there's a fairly low pass rate like CFP, CPA exam, CFA, which is brutal. Richard, I think you've taken the first leg of the CFA, if I'm not mistaken.
I have, yeah. I took it when I was a senior in college, actually, to compete with my teammate who was at an Ivy League school. So
yeah, so it's these bigger designations, they matter. And again, to our firm, it matters that our advisors have that when people come in and actually sit down with us.
Well, Chris, too. I mean, if we wanted to, you could go out and get a huge alphabet soup of titles behind your name, right?
Yeah.
There's just the CFP encompasses all on the financial planning side of the industry.
Why not just do one, right?
Exactly.
Sense. That's the way we feel. And again, just as a reminder, just in case you're tuning in during the middle of the show, this is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace, and you can give our firm a call at 256-937-2010 if you'd like to set up a discovery session. If you'd like for us to come out and do what we call a lunch and learn, we'll take care of lunch for your employees, gather them together, go over the benefits, and actually teach them about the things that they need to know about their retirement plan and how to prepare for their future. So again, if you'd like to set up a lunch and learn, if you're a business owner, we'd be glad to come in and do that. If you'd like to do that discovery session, again, that number is 256-937-2010. And also, if you are on Facebook, you can look us up and follow us on Facebook. You can do that by searching within Facebook, WG Financial Group 256.
Don't panic in uncertain market times. Let Cris Wallace be your trusted guide. Call Cris Wallace today at 256-937-2010 for expert advice and support. That's 256-937-2010.
All right, so now I want to move on to, one of probably our favorite topic of the day. I know that all of us in the office this week, we're looking forward to actually talking about this. And really, we want to talk about this social media phenomenon that seems to be going around. I am not on TikTok. I am, on Facebook, and these videos show up in my Facebook reels, the little short videos, because obviously I'm digging around on financial information. And the main topic that I see a lot is your 401k is a scam. So I went to Richard earlier in the week, or late in the week, last week rather, and I asked Richard, I said, hey, what do you want to talk about next week for the show as we started to kind of prep for this? And he said, do you want to go over an article or do you want to go over like an opinion? And I was like, an opinion? It's like, yeah, well, what do you mean? So hit me with an example. He said 401ks are a scam. And I was like, whoa, third rail, here we go. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. I said, so send Graham and I some articles and videos or whatever that you've run across. I've already seen a ton, so I'm ready to rock and roll on this topic. I know Graham has seen, them as well. So Richard, I'll let you kind of lead it from here and why you brought it up, because you brought it up. You were like 401ks are a scam in the office, and I was like, let's do it. So why this topic?
There are very few things in life that genuinely irritate me, and this, for some reason, fits into that category of genuinely irritating Richard Constantine. I hate how, you see all these things on social media and other avenues where they're just promoting garbage in a sense. And it's not like you're promoting like a fidget spinner who really cares if you spend $5 on the fidget spinner that has lights on it. You are, severely impacting people's future with decisions such as the 401k or other investment, vehicles that are offered. And so, yeah, Chris, that is why I wanted to talk about this.
Okay, so let's kind of kick this off. I think the videos that I've seen in my news feed and the stuff that you sent over, it really boils down to two different classes of people. Now, before we get into this, I didn't remind you guys of this before the show. I don't want to mention any names because I don't really want any bad blood with anybody that's out there. But with that said, the two classes of people that you're going to hear this from are, call them influencers. I think that's a lame term, but it's a real thing these days and people are making money at it. So you got these social media influencers talking about real estate. And then you also have these life insurance agents out there that are just really, really pumping the index universal life, or IULs as they like to call it, or either whole life insurance. And so those are really the two classifications of people: the influencer that's a real estate tycoon, so to speak, or he or she thinks he or she is, and then the insurance agent. So I'd like to kind of dissect just the insurance side of things, because this is the one, again, that I see quite a bit. The index universal life is a insurance policy, and I sort of liken it to almost like a hybrid between term and whole life. So it builds a cash value component. You have the ability to take a loan against it, and it's a little cheaper than what a whole life policy would be if you're talking about like premiums. Now, with these IULs, you tend to overfund them. So you want to feed a little bit more cash in them quickly so that the cash value starts to grow a little bit quicker. But what annoys me about the way that they're pitched, and I also want to make it clear, I'm not saying that they are 100% bad. I can just say that in my time in the industry, I've only found a select few situations where it might work. And it's less than a few situations. The thing that really irks me the most is how people, talk down on a 401k, and they throw around statistics that, they're grabbing from a website. I think it's called bankonyourself.com. Is that right, guys? Am I remembering that right?
That's one of the websites.
Yeah.
But they're citing other studies on the website mostly.
Okay. Yeah. So,
but that whole website's about essentially being your own bank in the future, where you borrow from yourself, et cetera. But Chris, if you buy one of these IULs, do you get like a guaranteed Lamborghini or anything?
I don't know, but you see that a lot in those clips, right?
You do. Yeah. That's what it makes it seem.
I saw one, it's probably been 6-7 months ago, where the guy was talking about the people that worked with him, and they all were bragging on their car. And one guy had like an Audi, souped up Audi. One guy had like a Porsche. It's probably, I think that may be where you're going with that. You may have seen something very, very similar to that.
That's like half the guys. Yeah. Most of them are like in their garage with their car. I think it's honestly, with the videos I watch, and I specifically searched out some when I knew we were going to talk about this topic, and it's, people might not be familiar with this term, but there's something people say on the internet is like rage baiting, which essentially means like you're watching content just to make yourself upset, or people are making content just to make people angry. Yeah. And that's kind of what it felt like watching it. But I think that the current era we're in on social media, I think we should call it like the era of the contrarian, because people have this fascination with people going and saying like the opposite of what the standard of doing something is. So it seems like the people that actually agree with these topics are more interested in the like Matrix-esque, like, red pill, blue pill that they're offering them, or seemingly offering them, being like, oh, you got to wake up. No one sees this but me. And usually that ends with you buying a course or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Graham. You mentioned the rage baiting, and when I was preparing for this thoughtfully over the weekend, a lot of times it has to do with taxes, and taxes are such a sensitive and emotional subject for people. So why not tell people that, you can get away with tax-free retirement if you do such and such, or, why not tell people, 401ks are a scam? Because right now people don't want to pay taxes. The debt's running crazy. People are really worried and actually afraid, because we know that the emotions play a lot on people when they retire. So there's a lot of people playing off of that. I mean, if you're sitting up late at night, you're going to see gold commercials come on TV, especially like on Fox News. You're going to see those because that is playing to the audience at that time. I don't know if there's any data behind people staying up late because they can't sleep because they're worried, but maybe there's a few. And then the gold commercial comes on, and I can't tell you how many times I've been asked about, hey, Chris, what do you think about buying physical gold? Like, what do you think about that? And I've been asked that. Man, if I had $1 for every time that I've been asked that, I might be able to retire today. I don't know. So, Richard, can you walk us through? So the article that we have, so we're doing the opinion, plus we're going to dig into an article. One of the articles is bankonyourself.com, and it has 6 reasons 401ks are a scam. So let's kind of walk through those, and I think it would be a good idea to debunk those. And we're not. So again, we are not advocating for this at all. We're going to show you through this process why we feel, good financial planning is important, and ties into what we do for people here in the Huntsville area. It also gives people the other side of the story, because we tend to watch somebody on YouTube or whatever, and oh my gosh, they got 1.2 million followers. They must be really smart. So I'd like to kind of dig into that article if we could, Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will lead off by saying that, one of the reasons why this kind of topic is, I guess, important to me in a way to talk about is because the arguments that they make are not terrible arguments. They pick and choose different pieces of fact, and it can be portrayed as actually, helping people. But for 99% of people, a 401k is not a scam. But let's dig into this article. So, Chris, reason one, the 401k is a tax deferral scam.
Yeah. So when I, started reading this one, I lost it. I mean, I literally lost it. I'm thinking to myself, do you not pay attention today? What's going on in 2024? How can you say it's a tax deferral scam? Because in 1997, under the Taxpayer Relief Act, the Roth IRA was introduced and went into effect in 1998. In 2006, the Roth 401k was introduced. And according to the Plan Sponsor Council of America, roughly 90% of plans and employers now offer a Roth option inside the 401k. I would tell you that a lot of people that come into our office are doing Roth 401k money to some degree in their 401k. So for them to just blatantly say that this is a tax deferral scam, I can't. It doesn't make sense to me, especially with the Roth 401k option. So let's talk about the Roth 401k option just for a second. Like, how much can you put in a Roth 401k? You can actually put in, if you're under the age of 50, you can actually put in 2024, you can actually put in $23,000 of Roth 401k money. That means in the future, you're not going to pay any taxes on that money. You're going to pay the taxes today as it goes in, and the future growth on that inside the 401k is going to be tax-free as well. If you're 50 or older, you can actually put in another $7,500. So you can actually put in, roughly $30,500 total of Roth money. And if your modified adjusted gross income is low enough and you're over the age of 50, you can put in another $8,000 into an IRA. And if you're married, you can also do a spouse's Roth IRA. So you got, 30, let's just call it ballpark, 30,000 going in a 401k. And then another, husband and wife can contribute another 16 if they're over the age of 50. So that's $46,000 of Roth money going in. So that first one really, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, Richard. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, because they highlight you're sitting on a ticking tax bomb because the government is going to need more money, blah, blah, blah. And Chris, you just pointed out a huge, thing. If you believe that the tax rate is going to explode in the future, then just put your funds in via Roth, and then you're never going to pay taxes on it again. And then another avenue that they're arguing is how, they could raise Social Security caps, what you're paying into it, or raise the percentage that you're paying into Medicare. So the whole FICA section. Mm-hmm. Well, currently, even if it's a pre-tax 401k, you're not paying FICA taxes when you pull the funds out. You're not being charged Social Security tax or Medicare tax.
Right. I don't know. This one really got to me. And, you've got on the insurance side, I'll kind of point back to the IUL and the whole life. Hey, why don't you drop 20 grand into this, $20,000 a year whole life policy so you can build tax-free money. Meanwhile, in a whole life policy, they pay a dividend to the cash value or interest rate or whatnot. And it's not like it's astronomical. I mean, with the market long term, you're going to average, let's just call it somewhere between, we'll just say 8 and 10%. You're not going to be getting that return in an IUL or whole life policy. So when you start looking at the tax-free benefits of each vehicle itself, I'd much rather have my growth money in a vehicle that has a much higher upside, because it's going to give me the same thing that the whole life or the IUL policy is giving me in terms of tax-free money in the future.
Yeah. I totally hear what you guys are saying, and I fully agree. And one thing that I heard multiple times, which was funny to me, and it kind of plays into the same thing when I was just going through listening to videos of people talking about this, reading some articles, is a lot of people like to bring up like, oh, if you cashed out your 401k, you're going to retire, you're going to get your 401k and you're going to pay, 32 or 35% taxes on it. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, data and information is really only as good as how it's presented to you, because the data, you're technically, not wrong, but why would you do that?
Yeah. Why would you cash your 401k in at one time?
Yeah.
All of it.
Why would you retire? And then the year you retire, say, I'm going to move literally all my 401k to cash and pay all the taxes today. That's not like a Roth conversion strategy or anything. That is just borderline, probably would be called stupidity. So I think between that and, some articles bringing up, where tax brackets have been historically, bringing up like the 90% marginal that existed many, many, many years ago.
Right.
And to be fair, we are also crystal balling when it comes to, saying that taxes won't go up to 90%. So nobody really knows for sure. But like you were saying earlier in the segment, Chris, I think it's more about using the pressure point of emotions around taxes to, trigger maybe emotional decisions from people rather than presenting the data in a more clean cut and probably just overall truthful way.
Mm-hmm. And I've looked at some of these illustrations before on insurance paper. So you're talking about these IULs and these whole life policies. They make them look really good. But the reality is they very seldom perform at the level that's actually illustrated. And I've, talked to people. We've actually, Graham, you and I have rescued a couple of families away from these types of policies, and they just underperformed. They didn't perform like the illustration said they would. And we said, hey, this is what we do with, our clients, and this is the route we prefer that you take based upon your goals. And that variable universal life policy or that IUL policy, that is not the path that we recommend at this point. So, yeah, it's just I think here you can play off somebody's emotions so good, and believe me, some of these people out there are really good that you can get them to buy into whatever you're pitching if you catch them in the right moment. Yeah,
and I think that's especially prevalent with younger people going into, offices with advisors and talking about their situation. A lot of the policies, we'll see them in different generations, but a lot of the, IULs and VULs and things like that you'll see will be from the younger clientele, because in a lot of ways, that's kind of the only way for some insurance agents to actually make money, because they're in a younger stage and they don't really have as many assets. And it seems like an easy way to achieve life insurance and, investment and retirement savings. And again, it's not like there is no situation where this works. There obviously are, a couple very specific situations where it could not be, too bad of an idea. But as a large scale substitute for the largest and most important retirement vehicle in the United States and probably the world right now, it is just not comparable.
No, it's the sales people that sell these act like it is really like the Swiss Army knife, and is the basically the savior to everybody's retirement. You have to do this because taxes are going up, and you can do all of these little things. They list out all the little benefits, and it just, if you know the industry like we know it, it doesn't work exactly like it's being portrayed, and that's just how it is. So, Richard, what is reason number 2?
The 401k employer match is a free money scam.
Oh yeah, free money scam, right? Here we go.
In the study, it showed that. They claimed that there was an in-depth study done, but they're claiming that typically 90 cents per dollar that the company puts in, that's what the company pays you less. So I worded that really poorly, but for every dollar the company's putting into your 401k plan, they're essentially saying that they could have paid you 90, or they're paying you 90 cents less than what they would have.
Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? And I'm your employer, so be
even
careful.
Even if that is truth, even if that is truth, I don't think that's a bad thing. America has a problem with the instant gratification side of things. Even if you are getting paid less, that's okay.
Yeah. I when I heard this, I immediately thought, well, isn't like when I can remember before I got into this industry and owned, WG Financial Group, I can remember when I looked for a job, I wanted a job that had all benefits. I wanted a fair wage. I wanted a 401k program that I didn't use, if I'm being fair and honest, but I wanted it, and I wanted good insurance, and I wanted that whole benefits package. So when I read bullet number 2 or reason number 2, I was like, well, what's somebody supposed to do? Go to like the employer interview and say, hey, I'm really interested in the job, but listen, I don't want the 401k, and can you just not like give me the 401k and just pay me a little more? No. Are you supposed to go seek out employers that don't have that? And there's plenty that don't, but I don't know. Just it was when in reading that one, I was like, this is crazy. I mean, they're really, really reaching there.
Yeah, it seemed like a bit of a reach. I mean, I will say with the study that they did do, I guess as long as people are being transparent about it. But, to your point, Richard, yeah, I do think that there is also some value in if it's just a partial salary deferral. There's probably some value in that too, because a lot of people just don't save adequately for their, like you were saying, it's instant gratification society. We tend to spend a lot more money than we save.
Right.
So, almost in a similar way to something like Social Security, where you're not getting quite as much back from your paycheck as you might otherwise, but it is going to help you later on to have that money saved and working in the market.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point there, Graham. As you were talking, I was thinking that, I am not a fan of the government telling us what to do. I'm not a fan of higher taxes and all of that. But, we've sat with a lot of people through our careers, and if there's one thing that I think people need to be told, not everybody, but some people need to be told what to do, and that's to save money better, save more money, and not spend it all, and put a lot more towards your retirement. So, Richard, what's reason number 3?
Reason number 3 is that 401k fees devour up to half of your hard-earned money.
Notice how they worded that. Devour.
Yeah, right. And so what's included, it's saying if you put $100,000 into your 401k, earning 7% a year over 35 years, here's what your balances will be based on the fee that is being charged.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So if there were no fee charge, it's saying that you would have a little bit more than $1 million. 1% fee charge, you'd have about $760,000. 1.5% fee, you'd have $640,000, and 2% in fees, you're going to have a little over $500,000.
Do the IUL guys on any of these TikTok videos that you guys watch or social media videos, do any of them talk about the fees inside those plans?
Yeah, the cost of insurance.
Yeah, the cost of insurance.
It's not an investment fee. It's the cost of insurance. But
here's another thing that I hear a lot: properly structured life insurance. Properly structured. It's special. It's got to be properly structured. So, all right. Anyway, reason number 4, Richard. Let's move into that one.
Funding a 401k is like putting your money in prison.
Hey, man, I'm going to be honest with you. Early on in my life, my money needed to be in prison because I told you I spent money like crazy. I used credit cards. I needed my money out of my hands. And for some people, that's actually not a bad thing. It basically forces you to put money on the shelf for when you get to retirement. And listen, I think that's important because I have family members that only survive on Social Security. And had they put more money away for their retirement or in their earlier years, they wouldn't be struggling like they are today. And it's not just my family members. Everybody listening to this show knows somebody that did not save enough because they didn't trust whatever vehicle they were using, whatever reason they didn't save enough. I think it's important. I actually like it that the money's hard to get to and that it has some penalties if you pull it out early. That's your retirement. That's what it's there for. That's why it's called a 401k. It's a retirement vehicle that you're not supposed to get to until you retire.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them a concession on this, I guess, in the sense that they are not wrong that, the money, if you don't want to pay the penalties, they don't bring up the rule of 55 either here too. They go off 59 and a half. Yeah. So, if you're working with the same company and you work with them through age 55, you can get to the money a little bit quicker without penalty.
Actually, technically, just to clarify that a little bit more, if you're 54 but going to be 55 by the end of the year, you have access to it if you separate from service in the year that you turn 55.
Yeah. So in the year you turn 55. So, I mean, that cuts down, 4-5 years almost of, more time that you can access that money. But I mean, you're right, Chris. It's not necessarily a bad thing to sometimes be told, you're not really supposed to touch this until you need it. Because, if you don't let things grow and you just want to get to it all the time, they're probably never going to grow. That's why most people don't live out of their savings accounts in retirement.
Yeah. And then the other thing I hear too, like on the insurance side, is you can take tax-free loans. And I'm sitting there going, well, if you have a Roth IRA, you can always take your contributions back out without penalty or tax. So isn't that sort of like a loan? And then they say, oh yeah, but you're taking the loan, and it's like you took the money out, but the policy acts like the money's still there and it's still compounding on itself. So they go through this whole spiel about how that supposedly works. But just remember, if you're contributing to a Roth IRA, you have access to your contributions at any time before the age 59 and a half. You can get it back in 1 year, the contribution, without any penalties, the growth that falls under that 5-year 59 and a half rule. So, reason number 5, Richard, as we start gearing towards the end of the show a little bit.
The myth of market returns.
Oh yeah, this is funny. Yep. Describe what this one is, Richard, because this one was a trip for me. I laughed out loud when I read this one.
I did as well.
Yeah,
my favorite line in this section is, yet Wall Street has brainwashed into us believing that we must risk our money to get any kind of decent returns. You know, if we look back historically, there is some risk, but that's the only way that you're going to consistently grow your accounts at around 9.5 to 10% a year.
So when I read this, did they say the return was like around 5% on average?
They said the average equity return is 4.25%.
Okay. So first of all, it's not the person's fault. It's not the plan. It's not the plan's fault. It's really the person's fault, because you and I have seen this. All of us, all three of us here, have seen this when. Let's just take federal government workers that have come in and they're all in the G fund. That's not the plan's fault. That's the employee's fault. You know, they've made themselves more conservative because they didn't know what else to do, and they just became emotional, got scared. And I'm not making fun of anybody, but I'm just saying that's not the plan's fault. The person made that change.
That is exactly right, Chris. You hit the nail exactly on the head right there. The 401k is not the one that's choosing the investments.
That's correct. Here's the other thing. Like, if you do any research, like right now, I think there's more TSP millionaires than ever. And of the TSP millionaires, and again, if you just look this stuff up, it's all online. The TSP millionaires, what they did differently than most people throughout their career, they invested in mostly C, mostly S, and maybe some I. They were mostly stock for the entire time when they should have been. And as they near retirement, I'm would feel certain that a lot of them are probably dialing back. But what made them a millionaire was not sitting in a stable value, a G fund or a bond fund. It was gas pedal to the floor, as we like to call it, and growing those assets. All right, we're getting close to the end of the show, Richard. I think there's one more, right? I think we said 6. That was number 5.
There is one more. So after decades of being lab rats in the great 401k experiment, most pre-retirees still do not have enough saved.
Yeah. Again, is that the plan fault, or is that, and again, I point the finger at myself. I lived beyond my means early on, but is that the plan fault? No, that's a lifestyle problem. That's, a discipline problem, if you will. If there's not enough in there, because the 401k, out of all the retirement vehicles out there, it allows you to push a lot of money into that thing per year. And if you're not hitting those limits, then you may have to make sacrifices in other areas. And Richard, you said a few minutes ago, we have an instant gratification problem here in America. We want it now, right now. We don't want to wait on it. And we will overextend ourselves to get there, even if it hurts us later down the road. And I think as retirement planners, you guys are younger than I am. I'm almost twice as old as you guys are. You're seeing this stuff on the front side, which I wish I could have seen it years ago. But I can kind of say for myself that I have learned a lot as I've got into this industry about how to change my view of how to handle money and what I should be doing with my money, how to plan for my future, and taking that, what I've learned, and then disseminating that over the airwaves with you guys. I think we hope is helping a lot of people out there. And we know that when people come in to sit down with us, they see that, they can feel that, they can feel that passion that we have trying to help their family become the best versions of themselves in retirement. And I feel like that's what we do a really, really good job at. So if you'd like to sit down with us and come in and do what we call a discovery session, you can give us a call at 256-937-2010. Again, our number is 256 937-2010. I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week, and remember to serve every person in every situation with
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. Insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Insurance Services are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. WG Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.